The house fell silent when Kingsley's parents handed Genevieve a contract and declared, "Sign this, all your assets now belong to the family." Her husband, Kingsley, smirked and said, "It's only a formality, babe." Genevieve leaned back and smiled. "Then you'll enjoy what's in my safe deposit box." Their faces twisted in panic as the lawyer walked in. Genevieve had met Kingsley 6 years ago in Chicago. She was in her late 20s, focused on her career, and had worked hard to get where she was. Real estate was her thing. She flipped houses, made smart investments, and built a comfortable life for herself. Nothing flashy, but solid and secure. Kingsley, on the other hand, came from money. Or so she believed. He had the charm, the confidence, and the costly taste. He never talked about money much, but he always had the nicest suits, the newest gadgets, and the high-end everything. His parents, Gregory and Victoria, were the same way. They had an old money attitude, acting like they were superior than everyone else. Their house was massive, full of antique furniture and family portraits, the kind of place that looked rich. Genevieve wasn't some clueless, wide-eyed girl. She knew rich people. She worked with them all the time, and something about Kingsley's family felt off. His parents made little comments like, "You're so lucky to be joining our family, and a woman like you must be thrilled to have this kind of stability." She should have asked why they assumed she needed stability. Kingsley had moments that made her uneasy too. He borrowed money and forgot to pay it back. He once suggested putting her name on a house he wanted to buy, saying it would be easier for tax reasons. She shut that down, but still she let these things slide, telling herself it didn't matter until the night they made their move. Kingsley and Genevieve had been married for 2 years when his parents invited them over for dinner at their estate. It wasn't unusual. They liked their fancy family dinners with expensive wine and long, drawn-out conversations about legacy and tradition. But that night something felt different. The moment they sat down, there was tension in the air. Kingsley seemed excited. His mother was practically glowing. His father, always stoic, had a satisfied expression on his face. Halfway through dinner, Gregory cleared his throat and pulled out a big stack of papers. He placed it in front of Genevieve like it was a gift. "We've been thinking about the future," Victoria said, her voice warm, almost maternal, "about what's best for the family." Glanced at Kingsley. He was studying her closely. "Waiting. We need to assure stability," Gregory said, pushing a pen toward her. "This contract would allow us to combine our resources, one strong financial unit working together." She took up the first page and started reading. They wanted her to sign up all her savings, her investments, her real estate portfolio, even her personal bank accounts. All of it would be transferred into a family trust, which of course was managed by them. Her stomach twisted. "It's just a formality, babe," Kingsley said smoothly. Genevieve glanced at him. He was smiling like this was all normal, like she should have anticipated it. "You trust me, don't you?" Something snapped inside her. She leaned back in her chair, took a breath and smiled. "Then you'll love what's in my safe deposit box." The room went silent. Kingsley's smile faltered. Victoria's fingers curled around her wine glass. Gregory's jaw tightened. Genevieve watched their features alter, their confidence waver. They had expected her to be surprised, maybe even flattered, but she wasn't playing their game. "What's in the box?" Kingsley questioned, his voice tight. "Well, just some paperwork." She continued nonchalantly, "A few documents, a little things I put united before we were married for protection." The stillness stretched. Then Asif, on cue, the butler, entered into the room. "Ma'am," he said, "your lawyer is here." Genevieve wished she had a camera to capture their looks. Kingsley went pallid. Victoria looked like she had swallowed a lemon. Gregory only stared at her, his grip on the contract tightening a second later. "Teresa," her lawyer strolled in. "Good evening," Teresa said, placing her briefcase down on the table. "I understand there's a contract my client is expected to sign." Victoria was the first to recover. "This is a private family matter," she stated harshly. "There's no need for lawyers." Teresa ignored her and picked up the contract. She flipped through it, her eyes skimming the pages. Then she let out a quick laugh. "Yeah, she said, shaking her head. This is blatant financial manipulation. Kingsley shifted uncomfortably. It's not like that, he started. But Teresa cut him off, actually. It is. She turned to Jiv. If you signed this, they'd have entire control over your assets. They could drain your accounts, sell your houses, and legally you wouldn't be able to do a thing about it. Victoria's face turned red. It's only about trust, she snapped, right? Teresa stated dryly. That's why it explicitly specifies that they have control over withdrawals, property sales, and financial choices, but you would have no access without approval. She went to Genevieve. Fortunate thing you have a lawyer who actually reads the fine text. Kingsley stood abruptly. Why are you acting like this? He asked. Why am I acting like this? Genevieve repeated, her voice calm. You just tried to steal everything. Victoria's voice grew. Sickly sweet, sweetheart, this is simply a misunderstanding. No, Genevieve remarked, it's not. She took a big breath, stood up and looked them all in the eye, and I think I'm done here. As Genevieve rose up to leave, Kingsley grabbed her wrist, not hard, but firm enough to make a statement. His smirk was gone, replaced with something colder. Don't do this, he muttered under his breath. You don't want to make enemies here, enemies. She yanked her hand free and faced him in the eye. You already made me one. Victoria suddenly switched tactics. She let out a shaky giggle and placed a delicate hand over her breast, like a soap opera actress, trying to calm her anxieties. Dear, you're overreacting. This is all a misunderstanding. Genevieve didn't say a word, but Victoria kept going. We only meant to protect you. This world is dangerous. Money can be lost so easily. And we just wanted to make sure you were safe, that we were all safe. Genevieve scoffed. Protected from what exactly? Myself. Teresa, her lawyer, crossed her arms. If that were true, why did you arrange the trust so that my client had no control over her own money? Gregory exhaled through his nose, clearly running out of patience. He glared at his wife, then at Kingsley. This is becoming unnecessary. He said we should just move forward like adults. Genevieve nearly laughed. Like adults? You mean like how adults try to steal from their own family? She shot back. His face darkened, but she wasn't intimidated. The truth was their desperation was showing. They thought they had her cornered, that she'd be too shocked to think straight. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That's when Victoria dropped the next bomb, I suppose, she said with a small sigh. This means you're not interested in the inheritance either. Genevieve's head snapped toward her inheritance. Kingsley threw his mother a warning look, but it was too late. The word was already out in the open. Oh, Victoria, said her voice airy and casual. Did Kingsley not tell you his grandfather's estate, the one in Rhode Island, the family's real riches? Genevieve felt Teresa's eyes on her. She was thinking the same thing. This wasn't just about her money. The estate is in probate, Victoria continued, and soon we'll gain full control, but with your attitude. She tilted her head, letting the sentence hang in the air. Genevieve understood what she was doing. She was dangling a carrot in front of her, thinking she'd drop her guard, thinking she'd be tempted by the promise of more wealth. But what Genevieve saw wasn't an opportunity. It was a pattern. This family had a history of taking things that didn't belong to them. They were always scheming, always planning to get their hands on something someone else built. And Kingsley had known about this. He had kept this from her. She turned to him. Were you ever going to tell me? He ran a hand through his hair. I was going to bring it up later. Okay? When the timing was better for who? He didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. He never planned to tell her. They left that night, without another word. In the car, Teresa sighed and rubbed her temples. You realize what this means, right? Yeah, Genevieve muttered. They were after more than just my money, exactly. Teresa tapped her fingers against her briefcase. If this estate is as big as they're making it sound, you can bet they'll do anything to keep control of it. Genevieve stared out the window, her thoughts racing. What are the odds Kingsley has dead bet? She asked. Teresa gave her a stern look. You think he's concealing anything? I know he is, because it all made sense now. The expensive suits, the shiny lifestyle, the way he always talked like he had money but never actually paid for anything. And if he was in debt, then this trust wasn't just about manipulating her. It was about saving himself the next morning. She did something she should have done a long time ago. She hired a private investigator. She wanted everything: his finances, his credit history, his past business transactions, and what the investigator uncovered, it was worse than she thought. Kingsley was drowning in debt. He had many credit cards, maxed out personal loans, even a company loan he took up under her name without telling her. She noticed red. Not only had he lied, but he had stolen from her. And she wasn't about to let it slip that night. She confronted him. "How long have you been stealing from me?" Kingsley blinked. "What are you talking about?" She threw the papers onto the table. "You took out a loan under my name. You've been hiding debt, lying to me, and you wanted me to sign away everything so you could fix your mess for the first time." He didn't try to deny it. Instead, he did something worse. He laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "You were always so damn careful," he muttered, shaking his head. "I thought I could make you see the bigger picture, that you'd understand. We needed to be smart about our future, but you just don't get it, do you?" Genevieve's chest clenched. So this was always the plan. He looked up at her, his expression unreadable. "You have no idea what you've just started." She took a step back. "Are you threatening me?" Kingsley didn't answer. He just gave her one last look before grabbing his coat and walking out the door. She stood there, her hands clenched into fists. She wasn't scared, she was angry, and if he thought this was over, he was dead wrong. After Kingsley walked out that night, Genevieve barely slept. Her mind raced, piecing together every red flag, every lie, every manipulation. He hadn't just betrayed her, he had been planning this for a long time, and she had let him. The next morning, her phone buzzed. It was Teresa. "You need to come to my office now." Genevieve could hear the urgency in her voice, so she didn't ask questions. She just got in her car and drove. When she walked in, Teresa was already waiting with a file on her desk. "You're not going to like this," Teresa warned, sliding it toward her. Genevieve opened it and her blood ran cold. There was another woman. Actually, there were two. Kingsley wasn't just lying about money, he was lying about everything. Teresa leaned forward. "Meet Nora and Precious." Two pictures. Two women, both younger than Genevieve, both stunning. Nora was with him 2 years ago, Teresa continued. He promised to marry her, took out a loan in her name, drained her savings, then ghosted her. Genevieve's stomach turned. Precious was last year. Same story, but he never actually broke things off with her. Genevieve stared at the pictures, trying to process it all. So he was cheating. Teresa nodded. "While married to you?" "Yes, but here's the kicker." She flipped to another document. "He was also engaged to Precious." Genevieve blinked. "Wait, what?" "Yeah," Teresa said. "He proposed, gave her a ring, and planned a wedding. She thinks she's about to marry him in 6 weeks. Jev's mouth went dry. So he was married to me, engaged to someone else, and scamming both of us pretty much. And that's when it hit her, the Rhode Island estate, that inheritance. His family was obsessed with Kingsley, needed a wife on paper to gain access to it. That's why he had kept her around. That's why he had pushed for the trust. He wasn't just trying to steal her money. He was trying to replace her before she could figure it out. She needed to talk to Precious. Teresa set up a private meeting at a coffee shop the next day. When Precious walked in, Genevieve almost felt sorry for her. She was glowing, practically floating with excitement. She thought she had a fiancé. She had no idea she was Kingsley's next target. Genevieve introduced herself. The moment she said Kingsley's name, she watched Precious's face change. "How do you know him?" Precious asked, quickly guarded. "Because HEK, my husband's silent." "Then, that's not feasible." Genevieve placed her wedding ring on the table. Precious's hands shook as she reached for her bag. She pulled out her own ring and placed it beside Genevieve. Identical. That's when she started crying. She told Genevieve everything Kingsley had told her. He was coming into an inheritance, but needed to be married to secure the money. He had promised that once everything was finalized, they would move to Europe, start fresh and live a life of luxury. He had already convinced her to sign over her savings. Genevieve clenched her fists. "Do you still have contact with him?" she asked exquisite Ed, wiping her tears. "He's meant to take me to see his family." This weekend, Genevieve breathed slowly. "We're going to crash that small reunion," Precious agreed to go along with. The plan they didn't tell Kingsley they knew. Instead, Precious acted like nothing was wrong. She texted him, kept the engagement moving forward, even went along as he gushed about their future together. Meanwhile, Genevieve was working in the background. She hired a forensic accountant to dig through his finances. Turns out Kingsley had a hidden offshore account where he had been funneling money, the debts she had found earlier. Just the tip of the iceberg. Then she dug into his parents' that Rhode Island estate. It wasn't legally theirs yet. The probate process was messy, and they needed a stable heir to gain control. A stable married heir. Kingsley was supposed to be that person, but now Genevieve had everything. She needed to burn it all down. The night of the family dinner came fast. Kingsley thought he was bringing his sweet, naive fiancée to meet his loving parents. Instead, he was about to get the shock of his life. Precious and Genevieve arrived together. Genevieve walked in first. Kingsley's parents were already seated at the grand dining table, sipping wine like royalty. Victoria's face twisted in confusion when she saw Genevieve. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. Genevieve smiled. "I wouldn't miss family night for anything." Kingsley walked in behind her, arm in arm with Precious, and then he froze, his face drained of color. Genevieve watched the panic settle in as his brain scrambled for a way out. "Babe," he said, forcing a smile at Precious. "Why is she here?" Precious crossed her arms. "You tell me." Silence. His mother stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. I won't have this drama at my table." Genevieve laughed. "Oh, trust me, you want to hear this." She turned to Teresa, who was standing quietly by the doorway. "Would you like to begin?" Teresa stepped forward and pulled out her files. "Let's start with fraud," she said, flipping to the first page, "and then we'll get to bigamy." The room exploded. Victoria gasped. Gregory smashed his drink down. Precious threw her engagement ring at Kingsley's chest, and Kingsley just sat there staring at Genevieve with a look she'd never forget. Pure, unfiltered hatred. He knew she had destroyed him, and the best part, she wasn't finished yet. Silence, not the kind where people are processing information, not the kind where someone is waiting to speak. This was the kind of silence before a bomb explodes. Kingsley sat frozen, gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. His mother's face twisted in a mixture of terror and fury, her lips expanding and shutting like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the right words. His father just gazed ahead, the weight of everything seeping into his face, like years of terrible decisions hitting him at once. Then scam. Victoria spat, regaining her voice. "This is absurd. Where did you even obtain this ridiculous claim?" Teresa, calm as ever, placed a thick folder onto the table and moved it toward them. "It's everything in there," she said simply. "Bank records, loan documents for signatures, and oh," she reached for another paper, "proof that Kingsley took out a business loan under his wife's name without her knowledge." She looked directly at him. "That alone is a felony." Kingsley flinched, but Victoria slammed her hand on the table. "This is a family matter," she snapped. "No," Genevieve said, her voice level. "This stopped being a family matter the moment you tried to steal from me. This is a legal matter now." And then Precious spoke. "And what about the bigamy?" she demanded, arms crossed. "Because last time I checked, I was engaged to a single man, not some lying married scam artist." Kingsley finally moved. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood. "Precious," he said carefully, his voice soft. "I can explain." She let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, I'd love to hear this." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for an escape. "Okay, fine," he muttered. "Yes, I was seeing you while I was still married, but it wasn't what you think my marriage to her was over long ago." He gestured toward Genevieve without looking at her. "We were just dragging things out." Genevieve scoffed. "Dragging things out?" She repeated. "You literally tried to trick me into signing over my entire net worth. Sounds pretty active to me." Precious turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "So everything you told me was a lie? The future, the wedding?" Her voice broke for a second. "You told me I was the one for a moment." Something flashed in Kingsley's eyes, regret, panic. "It was hard to tell I meant it. He said I wanted us to have a future, Precious, while you were still married." She snapped. No answer. Victoria, still angry, turned on Genevieve. "You set this up," she accused. "You're trying to ruin us." Genevieve smiled. She genuinely laughed. "Ruin you?" She repeated. "You did that to yourselves. I simply put the truth on show." Kingsley had been silent too long. That's when Genevieve knew he was ready to snap. "You think you've won?" he eventually said, his voice low. Everyone turned to look at him. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was angry. "You act like you're the victim here," he growled, eyes focused onto Genevieve. "But let's be honest, this has always about power for you. You enjoyed feeling superior. You liked having things locked away, so I had to come to you for money." Genevieve raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting way to describe me, protecting my finances from a compulsive liar." His nostrils flared. "You never trusted me. You never gave me a reason to." "I was your husband," he exploded, slamming his fist onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. "You were supposed to stand by me, not turn on me like this." Precious took a step back. Victoria looked shaken. Gregory, for the first time that night, spoke. "Sit down," he ordered. His voice was soft, but the authority in it was evident. Kingsley paused, chest rising and falling fast. Then gently he sank back into his chair. Teresa cleared her throat since emotions are high. "Let's cut to the chase," she said. Flipping through her notes first, she pulled up a document. "Precious has already reported Ed the fraud regarding the money taken from her. That's one accusation against you, Kingsley." His jaw clenched. "Second," she continued, "we have already contacted to law enforcement regarding the fraudulent business loan, and considering the Forg signature, that's another charge." Victoria gasped. You went to the police, of course," Genevieve said, staring at Kingsley. "Did you really think I was just going to let you walk away?" His hands curled into fists. "Third," Teresa went on, completely unfaith-bed, "the Rhode Island estate, that inheritance you were banking on. It seems probate court has some interesting information about how deep in debt this family really is." Gregory's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" Teresa smiled. "Oh, you didn't realize your assets are frozen." The air shifted. Victoria's face drained of color. "No, that's not possible." "It is," Teresa said. "Turns out the actual reason you wanted my client to sign everything into a family trust was CU. You needed her money to pay off your debts." Victoria sprang up from her seat. "This is a lie." Yet the way her voice cracked, she knew Gregory knew. Kingsley knew they were done. Victoria was the first to crack. She turned to Kingsley, her voice crisp, her eyes furious. "You idiot." She screamed. "You had one job. You were meant to make this work, and now we're wrecked." Kingsley blanched. "Don't put this all on me," he shouted. "This was your plan just as much as mine, and you supposed to execute it," she shrieked. Gregory rubbed his temples, looking 10 years older. Precious, shaking, turned to Genevieve. "I want him arrested. Don't worry." Genevieve said, "It's already in motion." Kingsley's head snapped toward her. "You wouldn't." She met his stare. "Watch me." And that's when the sirens wailed outside. Kingsley was arrested that night. Fraud, identity theft, bigamy. There was plenty to work with. His parents, their estate went into foreclosure within months. Precious. In Genevieve, they went out for drinks the next day and toasted to the fact that they had burned them to the ground. Some people say revenge isn't worth it. Genevieve disagreed. Sometimes revenge was exactly what was required. If you liked my video, please like and subscribe to the channel.